In times of hardships and difficulties like now, Timor-Leste is never short of friends. As the country strives to overcome its problems, there are always people around to lend a kind hand. One of the greatest friends who has always stayed beside Timor-Leste is the European Union. Through its delegation in Dili, it has worked to help in a number of critical areas such as good governance, environmental management, as well as health. In this episode, the #1 EU diplomat in Dili will tell us about what the delegation is doing. Thank you very much for giving us your time to do this session of interview. I would like to begin with asking you to share us a bit about your education background, where you studied, and then what brought you to diplomacy and the European Union.
Okay, I studied at university in the UK a very long time ago, and then I worked as a teacher for a few years. I was teaching English as a foreign language. I then worked in consultancy and then started to work for the European Union in Brussels, and that was nearly 30 years ago. And I began working on cooperation with Asia. I've also worked on cooperation with the Balkan countries in Europe. I've worked with Latin America. But I think the most interesting times that I've had during my diplomatic career have been when I have been posted overseas. I was in Vietnam for a period of 4 years, then in Thailand. I've also been posted in Fiji in the Pacific, and now in Timor-Leste, and it has been a very interesting and very satisfying experience to have experienced these different countries and the different types of cooperation that the European Union enjoys with them, the different types of challenges that we face together.
What are the similarities here do you find from the countries you have been posted in?
I think one thing that I think is very relevant to Timor-Leste is what is being done within ASEAN in terms of integration, economic integration. And I know that Timor-Leste has applied to join ASEAN and is very much hoping that this membership will become a reality as soon as possible. But the experiences that I've had working with the other ASEAN countries, particularly Thailand and Vietnam, I think helped me to understand what the opportunities are of ASEAN cooperation within Southeast Asia, and also some of the challenges also related to how to make the best of these opportunities. But in terms of development issues, there are some challenges which Timor-Leste shares very much with Pacific countries. For example, climate change. You can see in small island developing states, of which Timor-Leste is one, the challenges of let's say being able to cope as circumstances change because of the changing climate. I mean, that is something that Timor-Leste has very much in common with Pacific nations.
When did you first hear about Timor-Leste, and what was interesting about Timor that you agreed to be posted in Timor-Leste?
Well, I remember I first started to be a little bit familiar, at least, with Timor-Leste many years ago, before 1999, before independence, because I was working with Asia at the time. So I knew about the Indonesian occupation. I knew about the challenges, the difficulties that Timor-Leste was going through. But much more recently, I visited here. I think it was 3 years ago when I was posted in Fiji. I was asked to come here for a regional meeting for I think 2 days, 3 days. And I was enchanted with the country, and I thought if I had the opportunity to come here as ambassador, I would certainly jump at the chance.
Since you have been posted here, have you been able to visit places in Timor? Where have you gone to in Timor?
I think both for work and at the weekends with my wife and also my children, some of whom were here at Christmas time. I have explored several parts of Timor-Leste. I've been to Bacau, to Jaco, to Balibo, to Maliana, up in the mountains. There are still some places I have yet to explore. I've not yet had the privilege of going to Okusi, which I hope to do in the next couple of months. But I have managed to see, I think, quite a lot of what Timor-Leste has to offer.
And what is your impression about the people of Timor, the Timorese?
The Timorese people I find to be very, very warm, very interesting. I think you have a very interesting culture, a very interesting and sometimes challenging past, background. But all of this, I think, makes exchanges and friendships with Timorese people extremely, extremely interesting and extremely satisfying.
Back to your work. What is so interesting about diplomacy, about being a diplomat, that has sort of made you decided to be one?
I think, as far as I'm concerned, representing the European Union is a huge privilege. It's also a big responsibility. I mean, we are a grouping of 27 countries. We're a major economic and political entity, and what I find very satisfying is being able to identify how best the European Union can cooperate with countries and regions around the world in a way that maximizes opportunities for both of us. I mean, with Timor-Leste, for example, in the European Union is very keen to deepen our strategic and political relations. We find that Timor-Leste is very much a like-minded partner in terms of the way it sees the world. And by the same token, there are a lot of opportunities for us to cooperate on, for example, sustainable development issues. So I think through diplomacy you can really work on a number of different fronts in terms of developing very much mutually beneficial relations with the world. And I also very much enjoy trying to make people aware of what the European Union is, what the European Union does, what the European Union can offer as a partner. And some people see the blue flag with the 12 yellow stars and think, oh, European Union, I don't really know what this is. I know that it's a development partner, but what is it? And I think demystifying the European Union, giving it some sort of personality and giving it a character so that people really are aware of what it is, what the European Union is important for me as well. This aspect of communication in my job.
And what's most difficult about being a diplomat?
I guess always being diplomatic. There are times when you have to have difficult discussions with partners, with different people, and it's important to always have these discussions in a constructive way. And I like to think that I do manage to do that, but sometimes it's not always easy to find a way to phrase difficult messages that you need to get across to partners in a constructive way, in a way that they're going to be well received. That sometimes is quite a challenge.
Being an ambassador is also identical with having a very busy schedule from time to time. How, as a diplomat, do you manage with the family life? How do you spend time with the family?
Well, I'm fortunate to be here with my wife, so we managed to spend a lot of time together, and she is very supportive of my diplomatic work. We host a lot of dinners with government officials, with ambassadors, and it's part of the job. But we're able to spend weekends and holidays together away from diplomacy. Seeing our children is not so easy. They live in, we have 3 children, they live in Cambodia, Fiji and New Zealand. One of the problems of becoming a diplomat is that a diplomat's children often don't know where they belong or where they want to live, so they tend to be living in different parts of the world where we have been posted or near where we've been posted. So it's not so easy to see the children as often as we would like. But we all got together last time, the whole family was together, was in October in Bali. Bali was an easy place for everyone to get to, and we managed to spend some time together.
How about your counterparts, the government and the people in the embassy? How do you find working with them?
I find in Timor-Leste that we have very good relations with our government counterparts. We work with a number of different ministries. On a day-to-day basis, our main partner is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, with which we work very closely. But given that the European Union works on cooperation issues in a number of sectors, such as nutrition, health, decentralization, forestry, agriculture, we work very closely with the different line ministries, and it's very important for us that we are always conscious of what their ambitions are, what their challenges are, and what strategies they have for sustainable development, because we need to work within the framework of their strategies and while respecting fully what they want to achieve for Timor-Leste.
And finally, what is so unique about Timor-Leste in your view, and also given that Timor-Leste is still part of the third world country, what do you think Timor-Leste should do to advance in terms of development?
I think Timor-Leste is unique. It has a unique history. It has unique, let's say, historical links to Portugal and to Europe. Geographically, it's in a unique and very important geopolitical place. As far as its future development is concerned, one thing that I think I would like to see the European Union working perhaps more with Timor-Leste on is economic development. I think sustainable development in terms of agriculture, in terms of health, education and so on are very important. But I think Timor-Leste also is going to be working very much on developing the economy, developing small and medium-sized companies, making sure that it's a favorable place for foreign investors to come, to set up businesses, to really start to do more business with Timor-Leste, seeing its advantages. So I think that's something that I would like to work very much on in the future. The European Union is going to have a new cooperation program with Timor-Leste starting next year for the next 7 years, and we're starting to look at with the government and with the European Union member countries where we should be focusing our cooperation. But one thing that I'm very keen to do is to work on the economic development side, which I think is very much in line also with Timor-Leste's ambitions to join ASEAN.
You have visited a few places in Timor-Leste, and as you know, one of Timor-Leste's biggest priority areas is tourism. Do you think that is a realistic priority for Timor-Leste to develop?
I think it is a realistic prospect. I think this is a beautiful country. It has a lot of resources, natural resources, which tourists, I think, would be very keen to visit. The marine environment, the offer, the diving opportunities that are here are absolutely magnificent. And also I think there's a very strong cultural identity which tourists would also find very, very interesting. I think the work needs to be done in order to provide the facilities that tourists need, including infrastructure in the way of roads and hotels and so on. And very importantly, I think there is a need to see how tourists can visit the country at a relatively modest cost, because at the moment visiting Timor-Leste is quite an expensive venture in terms of the cost of fares. Thank
you very much, Ambassador, for taking your time to do to this interview. Perhaps we could begin the conversation by discussing your latest activities in Timor.
Yeah, in the European Union and Timor-Leste are very close partners. We've been close partners for many years, ever since independence, really. And we have a close political relationship. I think we work very well together on global challenges such as climate change, on security issues. I think we are both convinced of the need to defend and strengthen multilateralism and to ensure that there is a world ruled by law, by common standards, and we're keen to continue and to deepen our work with Timor-Leste on trying to make sure that the world reflects the way in which we feel it should be. There are a number of challenges at the moment, and I think we work very well together to try to tackle those challenges. I mentioned climate change, but global security is another one.
Would you please share with us the projects, the initiatives that the delegation is working on with the government of Timor-Leste?
Well, I mentioned the political and strategic partnership between the European Union and Timor-Leste, but we also have a very close development partnership, or cooperation partnership, if you will. And we have for a long time been working very closely with the government, but also with civil society in Timor-Leste to try to support and to strengthen sustainable development. At the moment, we are working particularly in the field of rural development. We're working in health and nutrition. We're working in governance, particularly in public financial management. And we're working with a number of civil society partners in order to strengthen and to consolidate human rights, strengthening the rule of law, and also helping to fight gender-based violence. But to give you some small details which I think will illustrate the type of work that we're doing. In rural development, we have a major program called Aiba Futuro, Trees for the Future. And in the framework of that program, we are working with the support of the German development agency GIZ, who are implementing the bulk of the program. We're working to help farmers around Timor-Leste, particularly in certain municipalities, to really develop their cultivation of trees. This is in order that they can actually begin to make more money from trees, from some species of trees such as sandalwood, such as mahogany. There is a great deal of money to be made. So we're helping these farmers to plant seedlings, and in a few years' time they will be able to generate a lot of income. But even in 1 or 2 years, we're helping them to plant trees such as palms, which can and coconut palms, which can very rapidly start to earn them money, because they get to maturity much more quickly than some of the other trees. And we're hoping we're planning, and I'm sure we will succeed, to actually plant 3 million trees in the framework of this program. And that is, I think, going to make a huge difference to a number of rural communities in Timor-Leste. It's an important initiative to help farmers really to generate income and to help to secure their livelihoods. And it will have also knock-on effects in terms of helping small companies to develop through the making of furniture, for instance. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done so far. There's a lot still to be done, but it is a partnership which is certainly bearing fruit.
Any other challenges have you seen in implementing those programs that you have mentioned?
We're working, I mentioned we're working in nutrition. We have a program which is partly implemented through budget support. Budget support is a system whereby the European Union channels funds directly into the government's treasury account, and disbursements are made subject to the achievement of a number of agreed reforms. So we sit down with the government when we're planning a program, and in the framework of a government strategy, we agree on what the priorities are in terms of the development in a sector, for example in nutrition, and when we see that benchmarks have been reached, we're able to disperse funds. And in nutrition we are working in that way, and we're also working through a technical assistance contract with UNICEF. And I think some of the challenges in nutrition is really changing mindsets, particularly in rural communities, getting them to really understand what types of food are most beneficial to them, how they should be ensuring that small children and babies really do receive the nutrients, the nutrition that they need in order to grow and to thrive. And we're also working very closely with the government in order to get information campaigns around the country about nutrition. As you know, I'm sure, malnutrition in Timor-Leste is a significant problem. So it's very much a focal sector for us, and as I know it is for the government. But I think the challenge in Timor-Leste is very often related to the geography of the country. A lot of communities are very remote in mountain areas. Communities are very diverse with their own languages, with their own traditions, with their own ways of life. And sometimes it's not easy to make sure that all of those communities can be reached and that messages can be got through, and the way in which they see, for example, issues such as nutrition are really do reflect what is best for particularly the children of these communities, so that they can avoid being malnourished in the future.
A number of people have also claimed that part of the reason why we have such a problem with malnutrition is poverty. Do you see that as well?
I think that's a very good point. Certainly in some of the rural communities there is a very significant problem with poverty, which is why through, I mentioned our program Aiba Futuro, we're working not only on issues such as nutrition, but also on helping people to generate income. Because without income, it's very easy to fall into poverty traps. It's very difficult to ensure that families, receive all of the food that they need, that they are housed adequately, and that they have all the protection that a family should have. I think one of the fundamental aims of our cooperation with Timor-Leste is to make sure that there is a real lift of people out of poverty. And that is really going to be the sustainable difference in terms of Timor-Leste's development.
How do you find working with the government of Timor-Leste in terms of implementing the programs you have?
Well, I mentioned that we work through budget support when we can, and we have a program in nutrition which focuses very much on budget support as an aid modality. But we also have a program in public financial management, and we're just about to start a new program in decentralization and deconcentration. And through these programs, we are able to make funds available in order to support the implementation of government strategies. And our relationship with the government is very much a partnership. So we will sit and have dialogue around sectoral policy in these areas. So rather than our insisting on European Union procedures being used to hire technical assistance, to make payments and so on, we use government systems, because the money that we make available through budget support is paid directly into the Treasury. It is mingled with the government's budget, and the use of these funds is decided by the government itself, which means that we have much more time available to actually engage on dialogue on policy, to really support the government's aims in terms of reform, in terms of taking forward well-being for the people when it comes to decentralization, when it comes to making decisions closer to the people, when it comes to nutrition, when we're very much looking at how communities can best be served in terms of food. And that really enables us to concentrate on what the core issues are and how sustainable development can be brought. And this partnership that we have with the government is very strong. And I know that through our policy dialogue on nutrition in public financial management, we are able really to focus with the government and other stakeholders as well. We involve civil society organizations, we involve other development partners. We're able to focus on what the key challenges are. And I think budget support is a very important mechanism to use with a partner such as Timor-Leste, where there are challenges, but where there are strong strategies in place, but where sometimes support is needed to make sure that these strategies are implemented as well as they can be.
The question I've always asked diplomats and also heads of organizations when I talk to them is, how do you align the programs or the projects you work on with Timor-Leste's own national strategy for the development plan? So how is that with the European Union?
Our programs are always, our bilateral programs with the government of Timor-Leste are always anchored in national strategies. We do not think it would be very efficient or effective for us to come and impose a strategy which is not established and which is not owned by the government. So all of our programs, whether they're in nutrition or public financial management or decentralization, are based on the government's own strategies. And that is the way I think we can ensure that the support that we provide is sustainable, because it's not a short-term strategy imposed by a development partner, it's a government strategy, and we support the implementation. Long term. First of all, we were just talking about the way in which our cooperation is anchored in government and local strategies, and I think that is certainly a way to do it, because the input that we provide is in the context of a longer term, let's say, strategic vision that Timor-Leste has. But then secondly, and also extremely important, is making sure that the programs are really owned and driven by the communities themselves. And we spend a lot of time through our cooperation programs in ensuring that there is very, very good understanding, but also a very good, let's say, direction that is coming from the local community. Again, if we come in from outside and we impose a certain way of doing things, after we disappear, after the project leaves in 3 or 4 years, there's a very strong likelihood that communities will go back to doing things the way they did before, and that the sustainable development that the program or the project is designed to ensure will not be there. So we work with them at the beginning of the project, beginning of the program, to make sure that everything that we do is very much in line with what they see as beneficial to their community, the way in which they see their long-term benefits coming from European Union cooperation. Because if we're not really anchored in the wishes of the local community, then I think there is a real risk that our support is not sustainable.
Do you think financial reasons also contribute to the failures or the ending of the programs that have not worked?
I think a good program must ensure that income is generated from outside, let's say, the money which will come from a development partner. So if after 4 years, if over a 4 or 5 year period, a development partner is providing all of the financing for an initiative, and then when the initiative ends, there is no more money, I think it's quite likely that the initiative will fail. But if the initiative is designed to ensure that there is income that the project or program is generating income either because it's earning revenue or because it's anchored in a government strategy and the government is providing financing to continue the initiative, then I think that is the way that we can make sure that the financial support that we provide is let's say seed money in order to make sure that there is long-term change and benefit.
On a slightly different topic, the decentralization. So what does the European Union do in working with the government on that particular area?
Well, in decentralization and deconcentration, it's a program that we've just signed the financing agreement for. It's not yet underway, but we're working with the Ministry of State Administration in order to prepare all of the groundwork now that we've signed the agreement, and we're working also with UNDP, which will be providing technical assistance for decentralization. The program is designed to help ensure that municipalities can take the decisions that are appropriate to be taken at the local level, and that they can support the local populations without needing to go back to central government. So it's really about empowering local communities, which then empowers the local population, because they can see that the municipalities are responding to their needs, that everything doesn't come back to Delhi for a decision. And I think that's the fundamental aim of a decentralization program, to make sure that at the local level, municipalities, local authorities are best equipped in order to serve the needs of the local population without referring to the central government.
In your observation, do you think the municipalities are sort of ready to take over the power, if you'd like to call it, from the national level, from the central government?
I think different municipalities may need different amounts of technical assistance, of support, in order to make them ready, in order to build their capacity to take over, let's say, certain administrative tasks which are at the moment done at the central level, which is why we are engaging UNDP to provide that technical assistance, to provide that capacity building, in order that the municipalities can really make the best of the program. I agree, in some municipalities not all of the capacity needed is there at the moment, so there does need to be input provided by in this case the UNDP with the European Union financing to help to bring the municipalities' capacity up to the level whereby they can fully participate in the program.
Another exciting program, which is the 3 million tree. Could you please elaborate more on that particular program?
Well, it is 3 million trees is a great ambition and a great slogan, but it does this program implemented by GIZ and also jointly financed by the German government and the European Union. It has as its objective to help farmers to generate income from trees, from cultivating trees, from selling trees. But it also has a very important role, the program, in helping to ensure that environmental degradation is countered. In many rural communities we have seen, and we're seeing now, the negative effects of climate change in Timor-Leste. We can see that lands which until now had been perfect for cultivating certain species, now need to be sown with other species because the conditions have changed because of the changing climate. So the 3 million tree program, Aiba Futuro, will not only help farmers to generate income, but it will also make sure that the negative effects of climate change are mitigated against by helping farmers to have the tools necessary to ensure that what they cultivate is actually appropriate for the changed climate. And we've also seen in many parts of Timor-Leste, unfortunately, landslides. We've seen hillsides very much degraded due to deforestation, and that can cause flooding. It can cause natural disasters. So again, through the planting of 3 million trees, that also can, I think, be countered, because the planting of trees, the reforestation of land will have a very beneficial effect.
How do you work with the other diplomatic corps, the embassies in Timor-Leste? How do you work with them?
Well, we work very closely. There is a relatively small but very good diplomatic corps in Dili. A number of us are development partners of Timor-Leste, and we work in different areas, in different sectors. We try to ensure that we work in a complementary way, that we communicate effectively under the leadership of the government on what we are planning, on what we are implementing, so that we don't duplicate. I think there's always more that can be done in order to make sure that the different sectors which really do need support are covered. But I think we do work well together. The European Union here in Timor-Leste only has one member state. One of our member states is here with a full embassy, Portugal. We have the presence of France through the French Institute, and we have the German Cooperation Agency. So we don't have many European Union development partners here. I would like to see more coming in to join us. But that being said, the European Union remains one of the largest development partners of Timor-Leste. But I think in order to ensure that what we do is fully complementary to what is being provided by other development partners, we do need to cultivate this very close working relationship that we already enjoy with the other embassies and the other agencies, such as the World Bank, such as the United Nations. There's a good team here, and I think we work well together. But we do also need to have the government to tell us what they want from us. We touched on before that the need for development partners such as the European Union to anchor our cooperation initiatives in government strategies, and by the same token, we also need to hear from the government, from our partner government, where the government thinks the different development partners should be working. Where are we strong? Where do we have a good track record? In which areas, for example, should the European Union be concentrating its work because of what we've done before, or because there are no other development partners working there?
How about the donors, the international donors, for instance? How is there a way you work with them when it comes to implementing development programs in Timor-Leste?
Well, we sometimes ask development agencies to implement part of our programs for us. We are working, for example, through in the framework of public financial management. We have a budget support program, but we also have a technical assistance component which is implemented by the Portuguese cooperation agency Camões. In the field of rural development, the AIBA Futuro program, the famous 3 million tree program, we are working through GIZ, which is the German development agency. And in the decentralization program, we're working through the UNDP. So we try to work closely, not only in order to coordinate the different inputs that we're providing, but we also want to use the skills of the development agencies in terms of their implementing our cooperation initiatives that we have agreed with the government.
Another interesting topic is the Brexit. You might know that there are several thousands of Timorese working in from where they work once Brexit actually happens.
I think the European Union Embassy in London is providing information to European Union citizens on the conditions for, the conditions are set by the British government, but certainly the European Union Embassy is providing legal advice to European Union citizens, including Timorese citizens who are travelling on a Portuguese passport.
And just to finish the conversation, the issue of the coronavirus has come into prominence in the last few weeks. Is there anything that the European Union and also the other diplomatic corps in Timor-Leste doing to help in preventing the virus entering the country, working with the government, for instance?
Well, the European Union is being very badly hit by the coronavirus. You will have seen that in several of our member states, in Italy, in France, in Spain, coronavirus has become a very, very serious problem. So we know what it's like. We know the dangers that coronavirus brings. So we're very keen to work as closely as we can with Timor-Leste to raise awareness of the need, for example, for hygiene measures in order to try to prevent or to reduce the risk of contagion of the illness. We have been discussing with the Ministry of Health. There were several ambassadors who had a meeting with the Prime Minister the other day, and we have made it clear that we are ready to provide support, and we're also very keen to ensure that our citizens who are living in Timor-Leste are protected in the same way as Timorese people are. And I think one thing that we are particularly keen to try to help with is getting messages across about coronavirus. There is a lot of misinformation, particularly on social media, and it is, I think, very important that people are made aware of what the disease is, how it is transmitted, how you can guard against catching it. I mean, we have until now been fortunate in Timor-Leste that there are no confirmed cases, and I very much hope that that will continue. But if or when a case comes, it's important that everybody is aware of what dangers that represents, but also of the realities of transmission and the realities of the illness.
Let us now hear from some of Ambassador Jacob's staff as well as the closest person to him. Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Would you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do in the embassy?
So my name is Carla da Silva Leitsky. I work here as the program officer in charge of civil society and governance.
And on a daily basis, what do you do in that position?
So we are here to see how we can strengthen civil society and also to bring them to participate in the policy dialogue with the government, also enabling a positive civic space. So for that, we are seeing ways to support them through grants or training, or how we can also support them, linking them with the policy dialogue.
What kind of civil society groups do you work with? Is it all the NGOs, for instance, in Timor-Leste, or just some of them? How do you choose your
So usually,
civil society organization?
for when we have grants, we have the calls for proposals, and then the NGOs, the foundation, the local civil society organization, and internationals, they can apply, and after a selection process, they will be awarded according to their proposal. Currently, we are working both with local NGOs and international NGOs, for example, for Coopers, ACBIT, Mercy Corps, Plan, and Empresa DIEC.
And what is the role of the ambassador in your work? How do you connect to the ambassador?
So the ambassador is a really friendly person, and on a day-to-day basis, I see him every morning. He stops by to see how we are doing, how his work doing. Maybe even in the afternoon, he'll stop by to give us some chocolates to sweet things up. But he's always on top of things, and I think because he has a lot of experience with the European Union cooperation work, that really helps my work with civil society and the whole European Union team work here in Timor-Leste.
And would you please share with us an example of a success story of working with the civil society organizations in Timor?
So now we are planning to have a training for project development and also government, specifically sustainable development goals. So we've been consulting them on how we can better give this training. So that's not something that we just want to give, that is something that is relevant and necessary. Also, for example, the European Union is working on the new strategy, and then we are also consulting with them to see what would be the priorities that would be relevant for them and then for us as well.
Bila hati hau itabot ni naran itabot ni posisaung ia embaixada.
Hani naran Julecia Lopes do Sarmento, hani posição da assistente à comunicação e a delegação União Europeia.
Ho itabot ni posisaung ni lorong itabot ni serviço maksaida det.
Bem, e a hani posição lorong atividade ne bemak hawalau regular ia lorongnya maka how dalam barak liu controla ia fanpage União Europeia nian e depois halo tradução bahira embaixador atau bahalo speech ka discurso ia a cerimônia rumah e hana vamos how sempre acompanha bahiranya halo nia marca presença ia cerimônia sira halo video ka halo sai fotografia bahira nia iha atividade sira na bemak iha liu.
Então, ho nune papel embaixador iha itene serviço ne saida.
Bem, senhor embaixador nia nesan líder ida bahau haurasi kanesan jovem ne bema agora serviço iha delegação União Europeia. Inya hanesan líder ne bemak haraikan. E sempre dader exemplo, dader se nia mais cedo, nia sempre liu husi staff sira nia oda matang e sempre nia check ini fo bom dia, media kala, ni sempre husu itene condição. E nia wahira ita halo ita triponia ba iha município sira. Nia sempre dadalia naru ko ita kona ba ita ni nação, exemplo, hau jovem, de husuliu, pensama imi bahira hau halau discurso rumah hotet, teto imi sente insa, imi contente, imi bela compreende, e hamos hato hami sentimento bahira ni halo discurso, hau rasik halo observação, e ema barak senti contente e bahira iha embaixador ne bemak foi maidet iha fulang hira ni larak, ni hato ni discurso sira ba audiência sira ho liang tetung nia la usa liu iha liang inglês e hau senti nia bahira hau serviço ho nia hau senti líder de bema close ho nia staff sira ho tu.
Thank you very much, Madam, for doing this. I would just like to start by asking you about what it is like to be the spouse of a diplomat.
Okay, well, it comes with a lot of privileges, of course. It allows us to travel to loads of different countries around the world. I feel very proud that my husband is serving the European Union in this way, and I feel very lucky to be able to come on the journey with him. However, it's important that I have something fulfilling to do for myself as well. So I've been lucky enough to find work along the way or something really interesting and challenging to do in every place that I've been, and I think that's very important to do as the spouse of a diplomat.
And what is Ambassador Jacob like as a person?
Well, what is he like as a person? He makes me laugh. All the time he makes me laugh, and I think that's really important. You have to keep a sense of humour in the good times and the bad times. So he's able to balance work life with home life, with family life, and always with a sense of humour, which is great.
Ambassador Jacobs mentioned about the fact that the children are living in different places.
Yeah.
how has it been for you as a
So
mother?
that's the hardest thing. But when they were younger, they came around with us, so that was really special. So they came and were at different international schools. And once they grew up and found their own lives, it's harder because they're so far away. And yeah, that's definitely a challenge. But it means that when we do see them, it's very special. And we get to spend very quality time with them, so that's good.
Do you think for the children it has been difficult for them having diplomat parents who have to move from place to place all the time?
That's a very interesting question, and we've asked them that many times, and actually they are all very positive about it. They really relished the possibility of moving. Depending on their ages, sometimes they weren't all that keen to change schools, but they managed it fine, and they feel it is a very positive thing.
What do you do when Ambassador works at work, and what do you normally do?
Okay, well, my background is a teacher, so as a teacher it's always very easy to find work, but I also have a background in supporting mothers with breastfeeding, and that's what I'm doing here in Timor-Leste, is helping at the hospital, promoting breastfeeding and supporting mothers to breastfeed. So I really enjoy that. It's challenging, but it gives me something very separate to do away from the diplomatic life.
And what do you find unique about Timor?
The people. I love the people. I've got to meet so many people. I've had to learn Tetun very quickly because my work is in Tetun, and I've been just so impressed by the tenacity, so strong, these women who are giving birth and feeding their babies and going through all kinds of difficult stages in their life, always with a smile, always strong, always ready to take on any challenge, and I think that's amazing.
And from your experience working in Timor, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing the Timorese woman?
Facing the Timorese women, they have a lot of challenges. I think that gender equality still has some way to go, and they need much more support in the home and in the workplace. They're tending to have big families, and I think that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to support women to have access to gender equality.
Were there any time that was difficult being the spouse of a diplomat? Were there any difficult terms you had to go through?
Indeed, yes. It's always difficult at the beginning. I'm the kind of person that I like to have friends and people around me all the time, and it's always you have to find your way in, because as the diplomat, you immediately go into work and you immediately have everything set up. You have people, you have friends, you have a social life immediately. But as the spouse, you really have to find something to do, and you have to find your place. And yeah, it's difficult at first, but you have to persevere and you get there in the end.
Thank you very much for sharing all this with us.
Thank you.
There are still a lot more stories about the good things that the EU delegation is doing in Timor-Leste. I'm eager to hear more, and I believe you do too. But for now, we would have to end the program here and hope to have another conversation in the future. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the program. I will see you on the next episode of Diplomata. I'm Francis Suni, and bye for now.